Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone enjoyed their lunch. And welcome back to our second day to our afternoon sessions. And we will be starting with the state of the center, and where you will be able to learn more about the center and about student experiences. So first, we'll have a few words from Dr. Merle Collins, the director of Lasc, and then Hilma Chavez, a recent alumni. This will be followed by Sergio Garcia, a current graduate student, and then Dr. Lisa Carney, the Lasc postdoc associate. So thank you very much, and we will start with Dr. Collins.
Thank you, Danielle. Good afternoon, everyone. The student organizers have asked me to give a State of the Center report. Yesterday, as I listened to student and guest presentations, as I heard Claudia Rojas speak about TPS, her temporary protected status, as I heard her movingly read poetry about writing herself human, it reaffirmed for me that the Latin American Studies Center can and should be innovative, inspiring, and supportive of its student, staff, and faculty cohort. I hope I can say that this is at the heart of what the center wants to be, at the heart of what we want to be the state of the center. I began as director in the latter part of 2019, so I have had relatively little face-to-face interaction within the center. About 7 months into my tenure, there began something called exclusive virtual learning and interaction via Zoom meetings and webinars. Lasc has weathered that transition and learned its many lessons, thanks in large part to the organizational efforts of Assistant Director Eric Tomala, supported by Lasc graduate students, postdoctoral associates, first Dr. Kara Snyder, a graduate of Women's Studies at UMD, who is now an assistant professor in the Department of Women's, Gender, and Sexuality Studies at the University of Louisville, and then Dr. Lisa Carney, graduate of the UMD Department of Spanish and Portuguese, who is our current postdoctoral associate, working in coordination with the Graduate School Writing Center. Another recent Department of Spanish and Portuguese graduate, Dr. Sarah Dorman, has been employed during the last 2 years as an instructor for the second core Lasc undergraduate course. Thanks also to our past graduate assistant, Ana Mendez, a history student who is now completing a PhD at the University of Pennsylvania, and our current graduate assistant, ethnomusicology student, Victor Hernandez Sang, all students of the Lasc graduate collective from various departments and programs. I also acknowledge our Lasc undergraduate students. And I hope you've noticed my weaving into the narrative the variety of programs and departments that these Lasc students belong to, an indication of the interdisciplinarity that is a hallmark of Lasc, from which it benefits and to which it gives its support. Members of the Lasc graduate student community are registered in disciplines including ethnomusicology, Spanish and Portuguese, comparative literature, women's gender and sexuality studies, English, civil and environmental engineering, theater and performance, history, architecture, and urban planning. Our Lasc students vibrantly demonstrate the practical meaning of the term interdisciplinarity. So if you are in any discipline at the University of Maryland, have an interest in Latin America and the Caribbean, and you are not also a Lasc student, graduate or undergraduate, or Lasc affiliate, you're missing out, not only because of what you can give, but also what you can gain. You're missing out on warm interactions and thoughtful interdisciplinary scholarship. Lasc has a program in which graduates mentor undergraduates. Started early in 2019 by then Director Britta Anderson, it will soon be a credit earning part of a new graduate certificate. At Lasc, graduate students work hard to make Lasc the supportive space that it is, in person and virtually. They critique, support, and are instrumental in the shaping and development of the center. When I first came to Lasc and heard students of a Lasc graduate collective speak passionately about the need for a graduate certificate, I knew it was an initiative the center should support and help bring to fruition. Graduate students organized into a collective researched and promoted the development of that graduate certificate. And with that initial research as a basis, we further explored the idea, and with the support of the Dean's Office and our affiliate faculty, it is expected that the new 12-credit Latin American and Caribbean Studies graduate certificate will be fully on stream by fall 2021, next fall. By then, too, the center will be the Latin American and Caribbean Studies Center, affirming what the board voted for at the end of 2019 and confirming historical Lasc outreach to those communities. The mission of Lasc, as acknowledged on the website, is to promote and build a community of students and faculty interested in learning and actively engaging with Latin American, Caribbean, and Latinx history and culture. Affiliate faculty in various departments and programs throughout the university contribute to and support the work of the center and of its students, who are often also students of these faculty members. Lasc has an advisory board. Its members affiliate faculty from different departments and programs. During 2020 and up to this point in 2021, Lasc activities have been conducted virtually. Staff meetings, graduate and undergraduate meetings. One undergraduate certificate student did a virtual presentation to her class about her internship experience, carried out virtually during 2020 with a Caribbean community organization and Central American young people. Lasc offers an undergraduate certificate and minor. Students demonstrate competence in one of the languages of Latin America and the Caribbean, an indigenous language such as Quechua, a Creole language such as Haitian Creole, or one of the colonial languages, Spanish, Portuguese, French. From September 2019 and through this difficult year, spring 2020 to spring 2021, the center has had some 13 events with attendance of over 1,000 persons. Among these events were a 2020 virtual Dia de los Muertos commemoration, presenting in comparative perspective Day of the Dead celebrations in locations such as Mexico and Trinidad and Tobago. A series of conversations themed interrogating race and society in Latin America and the Caribbean, with presenters from Afro-Argentinian communities, indigenous groups in Colombia, and organizations in the Washington metropolitan area. Following a Lasc tradition, a Lasc Directors Conference focusing on a literary text highlighting writers from the Hispanophone, Francophone, and Anglophone Caribbean, and attended by more than 500 persons. The Lasc yearly student conference, planned for May 2020, was postponed because of COVID and held virtually in September 2020. It was themed Fuego y Leña, Food, Justice, and Sovereignty in the Americas. During this year, Lasc has had some excellent work-study assistants. Cindy Morales, an undergraduate student, helps to design and produce flyers for Lasc events and also assists with the production of the Lasc magazine, El Terapino. If you haven't yet taken a look at it, look it up at lasc.umd.edu. For this year's conference, you have seen the list of presenters and organizers. Take a look at that list again. Students working as hard as the Lasc team usually works. For these conferences, there is a nurturing of different students in the business of leadership and professional development. If you are not in the university, we still ask you to be a part of the Lasc team, attending our conferences, interacting with us, sharing with us the tremendous educational gift of your experiences and your commentary. And I know that you do that. A couple of people from Argentina got in touch and told me they wanted to be here, but it's their midterm. And although I say we here, know that this conference is fully organized by graduate students. I should also mention one graduate student, Ophelia Montelongo, and her popular bilingual creative writing program. In fact, I thought of Ophelia yesterday when I listened to Claudia's poetry reading. Lasc is a welcoming and nurturing family of young professionals. We've had support for our conferences from the Global Classrooms Initiative Program of the Office of International Affairs and the English Department Center for Literary and Comparative Studies. This student conference is supported by the College of Arts and Humanities, ARHU, our college home, the Office of Graduate Diversity and Inclusion, the Office of International Affairs, and individual donations from Ralph and Grace Ball. And I end where I began, circling back to the distinctive voice of one of our young poets. Claudia Rojas's poem, read yesterday, spoke of the individual coming across, let's say, imposed borders, bearing, and here I quote the poet, bearing witness to ground, to water, to air, and to entry point, Arizona. I'd like to think that the state of the center is strong and healthy, and that it is bearing witness to the multiple entry points of its students, staff, and faculty. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Collins. We will now have a few words from Hilma Chavez.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you my experience with Lasc. I want to say that my experience with Lasc has been very rewarding. I have a degree in Spanish language literature. So my degree focuses more on literature. We learn a lot about Latin American writers. So I felt like I was missing history and contemporary issues in Latin America. So I feel like Lasc came to fill that gap for me because they offer courses from like pre-colonial time to contemporary issues. I wanted to know more about the Aztecs, so I took a class on that, and it was very nice to know about their culture and their beliefs. Later, I took a class with Dr. Snyder, who's no longer in the program. I learned about social movements and the contribution that women have during these events. So I think all of this information, it's really important to know. Lasc also offers internships. So students have the opportunity to learn more about the Latino community in the DMV. They get to learn how amazing we are, and also the struggles that we face when it comes to access resources. For me, I didn't have to do the internship because I did a certificate. So I had an amazing professor, Dr. Carney. Even though I did the certificate, you know, during these difficult times, the pandemic, we still have the resources that we need. And Dr. Carney was always so helpful and positive. We were a very small group, and yet we had amazing discussions. What I really like about the program was that we were given the freedom to choose our own topic. So students have the opportunity to work on a topic that they were passionate about. My topic was on Central Americans, and unfortunately, we didn't study Central Americans when I was doing the certificate. So I am very thankful that I was able to bring this information to the certificate. The topic of my research was the similarities between concentration camps in French for people from Spain during their Civil War and ICE detention centers in the USA for Central Americans. So I was very pleased to be able to talk about that. So how can this information and knowledge help me in the future, right? This research has been the only one that I have written that has been 20 plus pages. And I can turn this into a writing sample if I want to apply for grad school. It would also look good on my resume when I apply for jobs that, require for me to have not only a Spanish degree, but also a certificate in Latin American studies. So I believe this will open more doors for me. And I am very thankful that I was part of the Lasc, that I am part of the Lasc community. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very, very much, Hilma. We will now turn to Sergio Garcia. Sergio, I don't know if we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Thank you for your introductory words, Dr. Merle Collins, and thank you, Hilma, for sharing your experiences as undergrad student. I think Dr. Collins did an amazing summary of her time in Lasc, and also thank you so much for your recognition to many of the students in our community for all the hard labor that we've been doing. I'm very honored for representing our graduate students community in this meeting. I am not only saying it because it's a political thing or it's a social custom, but I truly feel admiration for people that I've met and with whom I've shared in this space. I prepared a few key points to summarize some of the ongoing activities of our collective, of our graduate community. I think it's a very exciting time. It was hard for me to define what is the state of the center when I feel everything is in transition and also in this virtuality where we don't have that physical contact and we are missing so many nuances of what's going on. But we just heard from Dr. Collins that there's a huge transformation in terms of the name of the center that will change next semester, and also in terms of the possibilities with the graduate certificate and everything which that means, right? Like what are possibilities for our graduate community with our certificate, and not only for our graduate community, but how can we expand that to all members of Lasc community. So in terms of the activities that graduate students have been doing, there's the organizing the two conferences during the pandemic, as Dr. Collins mentioned, there are plans, there are conversations. We're continuously meeting to talk about teaching, doing research, mentoring program, and many ongoing projects. Unavoidably, when talking about the current state of the center, we cannot forget the transitory conditions of the pandemic, but I also don't want to center around these topics since their impacts are already widely known. Yes, we have faced many obstacles. We have lost job opportunities, research opportunities, or living spaces have been distorted, but also new habits and new possibilities have arrived. Uh, we still, despite the pandemic, we have been welcoming new members in our community, and that's very exciting to see that there's a future and there are new members that are full of energy and that are bringing a lot to our space. In order to prepare for today, I also review some of the documents and the references that are already exist that document our existence in this university. One of the most important pieces in that sense is our graduate manifesto, um, which was written by my friend Sabrina Gonzalez from a PhD candidate from history, and it's such a beautifully written piece, and many of them are still. It defines many factors of the history of Lasc, but also many of the root causes that and are still root problems that are embedded in our center, and that hopefully uh, we will continue. Keep advocating as a community to transform our center. There are many obstacles, and even although that uh, manifesto was written and was supported by our entire community in 2019, many of those problems are still ongoing, and we will continue to keep advocating for the centers, because the center is at as Dr. Collins mentioned, is at the heart of we are at the heart of the center, and uh, it is widely important for us, for our daily lives uh, and existence in this university. Um, so in terms of some of the activities we let me, about conference organization, graduate students have met uh, to plan the theme, organize the panels, recruit students, and put together art and many activities with methodologies from the arts and humanities. Through collaborative projects, we became more than researchers. We are writers, communicators, and scholars engaged with activism. So through this conference, our collective reflected and promoted conversation and conflicts that are developing at the national level. Um, and we do this work collectively, and collective works. I'm making a reference also to many to the document that I mentioned before. Collective works means challenging individualism and neoliberal practices. It means to consensuar, to project, to debate the goals of the events we organize, the speakers we invite, the type of space we want to create in the center. And it hasn't been easy. Horizontalism requires time, energy, and a profound belief that any collective decision and collective action will have a better result than your own idea. Um, it means many times that we need to trust in other people's ideas and be patient, waiting for the results. It means that we need to meet more often to discuss what worked well and what didn't work well, and how can we improve it next time. So I don't want to extend. I also want to leave space for conversation. This is a very exciting time for us, and I look forward also from listening to for Lisa, our current postdoc, and her. So you can talk more about teaching and our mentoring program. And I hope we can have a conversation after all the presenters. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Sergio. And so as Sergio mentioned, as Sergio mentioned, we're now going to turn it over to Dr. Lisa Carty.
Hello, it's my pleasure to follow up all of these other people who are such important members of the Lasc community. And they've already said so many things that are to express what's special about the Lasc Center. The postdoc position is really this fantastic role that allows me to interact with all the different people who are part of the Lasc community. This year I taught or was responsible for 3 different undergraduate courses. So I was responsible for the internship program with our internship student we had this year, and her work with the local community organization. Every week I got to read and hear about her experiences working with the community, and especially with the Spanish-speaking community of DC. I also had 4 fantastic undergraduate students in the capstone research class, as Hilma mentioned, and Hilma had to unfortunately leave a little early, but she was one of 4 fantastic students and young scholars who I was so fortunate to work with. Each one of them selected an independent project. The theme was concientização, the Paulo Freire term. So the idea of becoming aware, and how becoming aware and becoming knowledgeable also requires a sense of action. So each of them in their own way engaged this idea, and they conducted research. They met with me weekly, multiple times a week. We talked about academic writing and the transition to graduate school. And they very generously shared with each other comments and feedback, and really were a model of a writing group, helping each other improve. And so that was really a thrill. And for that class, I had the help of 5 fantastic graduate mentors. I'd like to acknowledge Keisha Allen, Chris Brown, Fernando Duran, Sergio Garcia, Nancy Vera, continuing in the tradition of having graduate students mentor undergraduate students in the capstone. It was a different situation than the past mentors had. So our mentors didn't get to come to a physical class and meet with the undergraduate students, but they maintained relationships with their mentees. The mentees really enjoyed having this contact with graduate students and really seeing, oh, they're regular people, and that it's so exciting for them to have someone encourage them and help them with their projects. And we got to hear our mentors talk as well. For the process of the mentoring program, I was also excited by the network of support that Lasc has on the level of the graduate school. The graduate students participated in a mentoring curriculum that I worked with Blessing Anekwe from the postdoctoral affairs office to engage. And it's a partnership we hope to continue. Mentoring occurs on an informal level among the graduate students as well. When we have new graduate students join us from different programs, they are welcomed warmly, and I have seen informal mentorships between later stage graduate students and earlier stage graduate students. I can't keep up with the graduate students. It's like I graduated out, there, and now I'm the older person watching these fantastic scholars plan events, work together in a short period of time, as short as a week, having a workshop on feminist activism, being invited to give a workshop on writing an abstract for a conference, working as the faculty mentor for the Lasc Graduate Student Collective. It's very exciting to see people working so hard to listen to each other. And we're talking about a group of people who, as you know, those of you who are members of this community, it represents, this is a group representative of the Americas. We have people from the United States, Latin American countries, the Caribbean, and as we've talked about, maybe not distinguishing those, or maybe distinguishing those intentionally, with all sorts of different experiences and different norms and ideas. And the common point is that everyone is really caring and wants to have successful events. It's a fantastic group of graduates. And then when it comes to faculty and staff, it's such a again, a really great atmosphere to be involved in. We have affiliate faculty members who are interested in connecting with our students, graduate and undergraduate. And then I know I speak on behalf of all of the graduate students when I say that it's been such a pleasure to work with Dr. Merle Collins as our director, with her calm and supportive leadership. Eric Tomala is the assistant director, is someone who can always count on for support and help. Cindy, who is our undergraduate assistant, does this fantastic work, and so has Victor this year as our graduate assistant. And of course, this is my year as the postdoc, but we had fantastic leadership last year as well. We've just had this really incredible group of people, and it's hard to express in words what is so special about a community like this. It's just that it's so rare, and that it's such a great place to come and work and study. I will say also about the undergraduate students that I mentioned and didn't get at before, is the introductory classes. And this semester I'm teaching 2 sections of the second introductory to Latin American Studies course. There too, we see this wide variety of students. We have students who are majoring in engineering, government, physics, computer science, business, criminal justice. I have first-year students and fourth-year students. And it's this incredible thing to have students come from all different backgrounds. At least a third, if not half of the students have some familial connection to Latin America in some way. So students the first day will introduce themselves and say, I have family from Argentina, Ecuador, Costa Rica, Puerto Rico, Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, and they become active members of the class and really engaged just as much as the other students. So I hope I filled in some of the gaps that were remaining. I really just want to echo the previous speakers in saying that there's great things underway in Lasc and more great things to come. And it's been this year has been a real pleasure for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisa, for sharing. Thank you very much to Sergio, to Hilma, to Dr. Collins for accepting our invitation to be here today for the State of the Center and sharing your experience at the center with us. At this moment, we can take questions from the audience. You can either use the Q&A feature here on the webinar. You can also raise your hand if you want to speak on the microphone, that we can allow you to talk. We actually have a question here already from Veronica B. Hello, I am an out-of-state graduate student. Is the graduate certificate program offered online or in person? That's a great question. I think originally, I guess I can kind of like answer the question. I mean, the program is intended to be in person. So unfortunately, it wouldn't be available online. And obviously, we're right now like in a gray area of whether like the university is going to be, I mean, we are moving to be hybrid in the fall. But I think in terms of the certificate, it's to be in person.
Can I chip in, Victor? Hi. Yes, we were just having that conversation in our colloquium. I'm a part of a colloquium which is at the core of the graduate certificate, and we were having that conversation in our last session last week with Dr. Collins, and we're trying to imagine how the colloquium will look like when going back in person. How can we expand, and how can we put the colloquium at the center for creating research capabilities, creating conversation, theoric and methodological conversations. So it's thank you for your question, Veronica. Yes, I think we don't know how it will look like, how hybridity will look like in the future, but in terms of like that duality between virtuality and presence courses, but mainly we're looking to forward to go back in person and keep continuing learning that way.
Thanks, Sergio. I was going to say that I think, do we have another question actually here? Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So if there's any other questions, again, you can use the Q&A or raise your hand. Unfortunately, Hilma had to leave. She couldn't be with us for the Q&A, and I think Dr. Collins will not be available either. So it's gonna be on Sergio and Lisa for answering questions. I actually had a there's a question here for one of our graduate students from our community, Gabrielle Tillenberg. Can you speak more about the name change and how it is a significant move?
So for us, the change, at least I'm trying to reflect and represent the graduate students' vision, and it was not merely a formality. It is a way to continue Lasc mission of including different organizations and programs on campus and fulfilling a diverse student demands. So yeah, it is our hope that the change in name will help to substantiate our increase also in resources to promote or continue or interdisciplinary outreach and our mission to advance scholarship, art, and activism about Latin America and Caribbean. But I don't know, Lisa, maybe you have another perspective, or there are other graduate students in the communities that are from the Caribbean as well, and maybe they can also be part of the conversation.
Yeah, but that would be great. I think you did a good job getting at what the community was hoping for, I believe. I see Dr. Collins, you're here if you want to.
Yeah, no, I just came back in to say that as far as a name change is concerned, it also acknowledges something that has been on the Lasc website for a long time, because the website announces that Lasc aims to work with students from Latin America and the Caribbean, and also with anyone who has an interest in researching Latin America and the Caribbean. And as we looked at it, we realized that because of this announcement, over the years, students from Latin America and the Caribbean, or who have a research interest in Latin America and the Caribbean, have in fact been attracted to Lasc, because of what Lasc itself has historically announced. So it's been there. I can think of students who over the years, because they were researching Haiti, for example, worked with me and then found their way to Lasc. You know, so that generally students from throughout Latin America and the Caribbean who have a particular interest in the entire region have been attracted. They've worked with Lasc. So we thought that that would also acknowledge that Lasc has in fact been speaking to these students, has in fact been attracting these students historically. And also it would have the effect of doing outreach to other students, the students from the Caribbean Studies Association, the Caribbean Students Association, for example, who have not perhaps historically thought, hey, Lasc is a possible home. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Dr. Collins. We have another question here. It was sent to me in the chat for Lisa. How do undergraduate students decide on participating in the certificate? Do they usually come in knowing that they would like to participate in the certificate, or do they come in from other programs?
From the people I've talked to, I couldn't say with certainty, but students who talk to me about the program usually don't have that in mind when they can come in. I think probably Victor will have a good idea about this too, having come and advertised it in a lot of classes, and Eric would also know. But in the conversations I've had, it becomes something that's like a growing interest based off of some connection made. And then they might have questions about what does the certificate do for them? What does it mean to have a certificate to go into the market? So some of them might be interested in it because they realize they're starting to have a concentration of interests in the class and taking multiple classes that count toward it. And then others, there are those who do have a very direct idea about doing it when they come in. But I would say it seems that mostly people are saying, oh, I could do this. Oh, that's cool. And they pursue it that way.
Thank you. I had a question too. Again, as I said earlier, I really appreciate that all of you are here, and also Hilma, right, coming as a Lasc alumni and accepting to be here. And I really appreciated how she was saying that Lasc, the certificate, how did she put it, like fulfilled a gap that she had, right? And I say this because I think, speaking from personal experience, and I think it might be true for some in our community, right? That we come to Lasc because Lasc, right, fills that gap that we don't have in our home departments, and that has been for me also my experience. And I wonder if you, Sergio and Lisa, right, as also a Lasc alumna, right, or part of the graduate community, if you both can speak a little bit of that, right? Like, what do you take from Lasc, or how has Lasc, right? What has Lasc meant? The community, the space, and how has that contributed to your graduate career, and how did that complemented your home department and your other experience at your home department?
Yes, Lasc, being in Lasc for me has been amazing. I definitely it provided me a space to learn about interdisciplinarity, to keep challenging my own disciplinary perspectives and my own conceptions of Latin America. It opened, as simple as that, it also opened a space to where I'm still trying to learn and improve on how expressing myself in front of other students, in front of faculty, not being English, my native language, that has also been special. Although here there are I also find friends with whom I can speak in my own native language. Yeah, so Lasc has been a space. I was a resident. I was named a resident, and during the just the semester that the pandemic started. So that also gave me a physical space to work, and so it has been incredibly supportive, and especially meeting a community that cares about me, and that cares about the development of everybody, and always trying to promote horizontal work and collective work, which, as I already say, it is not always easy, but we're learning together.
Yeah, and as a former graduate student from the University of Maryland, as my work in the Spanish department, I was smiling when Sergio mentioned the language aspect, because I have the opposite of being a native English speaker in a Spanish department, and I think we all find in Lasc this really cool place of, you know, speak in the language you're comfortable with and people will respond. I had this conversation once with Sabrina where she's speaking to me in Spanish and I was speaking to her in English. And I mean, I could have spoken to her in Spanish too, but it's just this fun sort of dynamic. I also, thinking back on what you mentioned, Sergio, as well, a lot of my research was funded from Lasc. When I was finishing my dissertation, I also had a residency. So having an office that was, you know, I had an office in the Spanish department, but that was where students could find me. So Lasc was a place where I could just work and do that separately. And I think also there's something really powerful about having a program that's sort of separate from your own discipline, where you can maybe feel not so observed by the people who are going to be on your committee. I mean, lots of our committee members are also Lasc affiliate, but the creativity, I guess, is what I'm getting at in the group of sort of saying, like, let's do something totally crazy and something totally new. And the Lasc graduate student conferences have been really fantastic in the past several years. With this dynamic group of people who just kind of say, what if we have people come do performances, and what if we do a conversational panel? So I really appreciate that energy and the camaraderie.
I also did a terrible job because I forgot something that has been very important for us as graduate students, and it's the writing group, which has sort of transformed during the pandemic as like a checking group. And we also still try to support our research efforts, but I think the priority has switched into prioritizing ourselves as human beings, as these times have been eroded or physical, mental conditions in so many ways, and it has distorted our space. And yeah, we are trying to care about about each other, but so yeah, exposing our own research, our own theories, our own methods to people from other disciplines has been amazing and incredible experience. And I yeah, like Dr. Collins said, like, if you're missing out, if you're not part of Lasc, you're missing out not only what you can give, but also what you can obtain from this experience. So I'll finish with that.
All right. Thanks. And I just wanted to say, and I hope that Eric will be able to come in and say something in a moment, but I think it is very important that Lasc actually visits different classes, because those visits to classes help tremendously, from looking at, for example, I teach in the English department, I teach a course that is part of the Lasc offering. And very often students don't know when they take the class that it would come towards the certificate, or that it would come towards the minor. But the visits that Eric Tomala and others from Lasc make to the classes help students decide. So as I look at that question, do students usually come in knowing that they would like to participate in the certificate, or do they come in from other programs? I would say very much that they often come in from other programs that they find out during the course of the semester, and usually early in the semester because the class visits are early in the semester. So they find out early in the semester that it's possible to have this count for a certificate.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Eric right here. Sorry, I had issues with my mic. I would like to add a couple of quick things. I keep track of data, and I have to say that for a very long time, the type of student that came to the center, on the one hand, took our introductory courses and they got engaged with Lasc and engaged with Latin America and the Caribbean. They basically fall in love with the region. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that traditionally, these students came from the arts and humanities, but today that's not the case. We have a great variety of colleges, from BSOS, computer science, etc. Right? So I think it's really important to mention the diversity of the colleges that are participating and they're part of our community as well. I wanted to interact earlier to the first question about the graduate certificate, and I believe that perhaps the question was about if the certificate is available to grad students from other institutions, right? And then I lost a little bit of track of the audio. So it's interesting, that question, because on the one hand, right now, currently, we're unable to do that, but I think it's an interesting idea to eventually allow other, that's a personal, suggestion, but to allow other students from other institutions to participate. What it's available to the students, and I believe someone probably already mentioned this, is that the colloquiums and all these different events that we do at Lasc are always open to the public, and definitely we invite our grad students from other institutions to be part of this conversations. That's all.
Thank you very much, Eric and Dr. Collins, for addressing those some of those earlier questions. We're nearing the end of the Student Center. We have about 3 minutes. If there's any other final questions, either from our audience or any of you of our panelists, Lisa or Sergio, if there's anything else you want to add, we can do it. We have some more minutes.
I just want to say something really quickly. I noticed Ana Patricia Rodriguez is in the audience, and I'm going to call you out a little bit for being so helpful when several of my students were saying, oh, I want to talk about Salvadoran students who live in this area. One of our affiliate faculty members who would just always agree and be willing to talk to them. And it's just an example of what we have in our affiliate faculty as well, with this interest in my own research. Victor's graduate dissertation advisor was on my committee, my dissertation committee, and I met Fernando Rios through a Lasc event. So it's these sort of interactions that are really special, I think. I wanted to add that.
Sergio, did you have your mic open?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to add thank you so much for all the graduate students who work on organizing this conference, and thank you for all the support for directors, and yeah, and especially Victor and Danielle, that you were chairing this conference. You did an amazing work, and thank you so much. Everybody who contributed, others, a large list, and Gabi, amazing work also with the art with Ruptura, which is just coming now. So keep tuning in, and I'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you everybody again to our presenters for your contribution, for your words, for sharing your experiences, and yeah, sharing with us what you've done and what Lasc has done for you in a way, and what it has meant. So thank you again to Dr. Collins, to Hilma Chavez, to Sergio Garcia Mejia, and to Dr. Lisa Carney for their time here. And as Sergio mentioned, we next have the artist panel at 2:15. We're going to first take a 15-minute break, and at 2:15 we will start with the artist panel, Rupture, Ruptura, and we are going to have Gabriel Tillenberg, the curator and one of our members of our conference committee, who will be co-moderating along with Marco Polo, Juarez Cruz. They're both students in the art history program. So thank you all for being here again, and stick around for our next panel at 2:15.